Hello, fight fans, and Happy New Year. I am Jason Burgos for Sherdog.com, and I am joined tonight by a legend who needs no introduction, but I'm still going to do it anyway because it's fun. You know, her list of career accolades include winning a two fights in one night in a one-night tourney in Strikeforce. That was my first time seeing this talented individual. You know, she won the bantamweight title in Strikeforce. We all know about that. Won the UFC bantamweight title. We all know about that. Two UFC 200 headliner, Ultimate Fighter. All of these things, but and someone that should really be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Currently, she serves as a vice president for One Championship, but in our MMA hearts, she will always be the cupcake, and that is the one and only Miesha Tate. Miesha, thank you for joining me tonight. It's truly an honor and a pleasure.
Oh, you're very welcome. That was quite an introduction. Thank you for that.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Now, I have so many questions. I appreciate the time. Now, I'll jump right into all these things. I was watching an interview from a few months after you joined the One Championship staff, and you mentioned sort of having various roles with them, being a brand ambassador, a commentator, maybe, be a part of some talent development, and even, possibly doing some charity work for them. Now, when Rich Franklin joined, he had, I think, a similar situation at first, and then that eventually evolved into what he's doing now, where he's really heading up the One Warrior Series system. Matt Hume eventually settled in as this role as a talent relations kind of person, heading up that. You have been there with One Championship for over a year now, I believe. Have things stayed the same from when you first started? You're doing your various roles, or have you been, settled into something where more streamlined, where one can use you, in its most effective way as possible?
Well, I definitely think we're narrowing it down. So, one of my favorite things that we've started to do is interviewing the athletes, right?
Okay.
So, it's really fun for me because, first of all, I've always been on the other side.
Mm.
I've always been getting interviewed. So, I have the hang of that really well. But to be the person to come up with the questions, interview them, but I'm the first person that really gets to talk to them in depth
Mm.
after their fight
Okay.
and after they win or lose, which I really like that we do talk to the athletes that have lost because I think there's unique insight after you lose. And I love that One Championship isn't just based on winning, because people love the athletes. I compare them to like the Rocky Balboas, the ones that's
Mm.
like, if they lose, people just like love them because they're such good people and so iconic and like heroes for their countries. So I love getting inside their brains and just seeing how their brain patterns already starting to think about coming back and how you get motivated from that. And I just think there's some great insight in that. So I love that part of it. That's one of my favorite things I've done. Still doing the brand ambassador, still getting behind the camera quite a bit to get breakdowns and get people excited about what's coming up because we still got to do an education process of why One Championship is different than any of the other organizations in the Western market. And
Mm.
me coming from the Western market, having been with them firsthand, I really do have the insight that I think maybe most people don't have, like why it's so different.
Now, and it's interesting that you brought up interviewing the fighters that lost, because when I talked to Demetrius Johnson one time, he talked about he was really impressed. I think during like a One Championship like fighter summit kind of thing, and they were interviewing and doing video promo work and marketing work for guys that had just recently lost, and he was stunned by that. As a person that's fought at the highest levels, along with Demetrius, what is it? What's the experience you've been through where you losing fighters, it seems, with the UFC or maybe even other promotions, get like a kind of, are they pushed away? Are they kind of forgotten about when they lose, and everything's heaped on the winners? Like, what does a losing fighter go through at the top level that One Championship seems to be doing differently?
Look, unless you're Conor McGregor, anytime you pretty much you lose value. And I
Mm.
mean even Conor to an extent. Um but look, in One Championship it's different because like I talk about when you watch $1 Million Baby or you watch the movies Rocky Balboa, and it's like you see them lose, it's like you want them to win so bad. And I think that's how we market our athletes because they have such great stories. They have these amazing storylines. I mean, think about coming from Asia where there's extreme economic poverty and the stories of these athletes where they come from. I mean, as an American, it's hard to even fathom that they can do the things
Yeah.
like stamp Fairtex. Like she's a 2-sport world champion. So she's a kickboxing world champion and a Muay Thai world champion right now, and she's undefeated in MMA. She's looking to be a 3-sport world champion. She's just a beast. But at 8 years old, she was the breadwinner of her household. How does that happen? It's through Muay Thai. So her story, I mean, it is unheard of. Women in Thailand, even if they do fight in Muay Thai, have a very clear glass ceiling. There are, like, the Lumpini Stadium, that's like one of the highest places that you could be as a Thai fighter. They're not even allowed. Women are not allowed still to compete in those stadiums because that's for men only. So, I mean, there's so many barriers and so many crazy things that she's had to do and break down. And when you hear those stories, like, how can you not love that person? How can you not want to be with them, win or lose? And I think that's the difference. We're just not based on just winning or losing. We are based on ethics, and we value our athletes beyond just winning and losing. And I think that's a great message for our future generations, right? Because nobody in life is going to win at everything forever. So I think, setting the bar that we have to understand that people do lose. This is their story. This is where they came from. This is all the failures. This is all the successes, but this is real. And I think one championship is real, and I think people can identify with that.
Now, talking about your various roles, I actually recently discovered this. Talk to me about this new show you have with one called Who Runs the World. I watched the first episode earlier, really enjoyed it. For those who haven't really watched it yet or just getting wind of it, what is like the premise of the show, and what are, like, the larger goals you're hoping to attain from the show and the series long term?
Well, so we did 8 episodes. They've all been filmed, and the last one was just released last week. Okay. But we do, basically, I will talk about that show first. We did a series with Facebook. So this is a couple-minute video, and it's called Who Runs the World? And, it's 4 women on a panel, and we just talk about various topics. I think that one came off definitely geared more towards women. We just kind of wanted to give some light on some of the issues that women do face still in sports and still in, the workplace and different various fields. So, we talk about that, but it's not an anti-men's show. But I want to, because I think some people read the titles, right, and they're like, oh, this is going to be like man-hating. No, we have a lot of love for the men in our lives. Like I do. I have a huge appreciation. I know they say it takes a strong woman to make strong man, vice versa, and it's vice versa. We have to work together. But I think moving forward, we're definitely going to have different topics and more things that we do. And I really enjoy doing that kind of sit down, open discussion. It's genuine. It was fun. It was something different than I've done before, and I really enjoyed that format. So I'm looking forward to it. I think next time with the feedback we got, this was kind of an experiment. Like I said, I've never done anything like this before. It was definitely geared more towards women, but I would like to broaden that audience. I'd like to be able to talk about things that interest the guys a little bit more too. I appreciate that you liked it and everything, but all the feedback, we're going to try to just make it a little bit more broad next time. The topic's a little bit different, but it was fun for me. I definitely enjoyed it. I want to do it more.
Fair enough. Now, you had a post on Instagram recently, and the caption really intrigued me in that you said, not every year has been as good as this year, and not every year has been as hard either. I'm not bitter about 2019, rather grateful, actually. Now, talk to me about that. What was great about this year for you? What was hard about it? And was the hard part, was it having to be, a person that left the U.S., moved to foreign soil, made that life change? Was that part of the hard part for you?
Yeah, I mean, the great part was I got to start a new job, something I'm really passionate about doing. I get to work with athletes and fighters on a regular basis. I love that. And also seeing my daughter change, she's just 19 months now. So, I mean, she's going through such a fun stage. So 2019, her evolution has just been so much fun to be a part of. And finding out that I'm pregnant too with a baby boy. Okay. Yeah, so we're having a son, and I'm really excited about that. So it was also great news in 2019. But I think what was hard about it, sure, was picking up and moving my family, before my daughter's first birthday. She was 9 months old, so we celebrated her first birthday away from family and friends. Just starting the new job, traveling, the adjusting, the cultural difference. I mean, everything. I've never been so far away. I've never been just so on such a different time zone difference. It's 15 to 16 hours, right? Yeah. So it's depending on daylight savings. so even the access that I have to family and friends is limited in that we're just off on different times. So that has been really challenging. But I think, without challenge, there's no growth. And I think for us, like just taking it's a 2 year commitment. So, we'll check back what we want to do at 2 years. Like think maybe come back to the US because now working with One Championship, as you probably heard, One Championship does want to expand
Yep.
stateside, and in 2020, which it is 2020 now, by the end of the year, I mean, the goal is to throw our first event on U.S. soil. So I'm kind of hoping that I can come back and continue to have my job and role here and be a big part of that push into the U.S. market because I really think it needs to happen. I've talked so much about how I think a lot of the fans have just been turned off by the
Hmm.
drama. Some love it, but some don't, and some don't enjoy the antics. They just want to watch good fights, and that's what One Championship is about. So we I want to continue to be a part of that movement.
That if there is one place that it is an easier transition to make as an American or just a Western
Yeah.
in general, it's Singapore because of the language. Are you in a way, as difficult as it has been, as hard as it has been? Have you been lucky that it wasn't like Indonesia or maybe even Japan or
Oh
something
yeah,
like that?
absolutely. I think as an American, 40% of the population of like I think 5.6 million people in Singapore, 40% of that are expats, right? So there's a lot of like multicultural, different foods, different people, a lot, even Americans, have a presence there. So it is nice in the sense that that's familiar, but culturally still it's a different place of the world. And, the time zone difference, as I mentioned, is difficult with friends and everything. But yes, it is definitely, of anywhere in Asia that I know of, I think it would probably be the easiest for an American to make the
Your daughter, I
transition.
believe, is around a year and a half. Oh, you said 19 months. Now, becoming a parent is such a big change in a person's life. How has your outlook on life, on kids, on parenting in general, now that you are a parent, even your career, how has it changed since now you are responsible for this human being now? Like, how has it
Yeah.
changed everything? I'm sure it's changed everything on
You
the.
have
Yeah, 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 I have one. Yeah,
Yeah, okay. So
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it changes the whole perspective. It's just not about you anymore. It's about this little person that you
Hmm.
have, your full responsibility and dedication to as the parent. So that's been wonderful. I loved it. I would say other people's. I actually like other people's kids more. I was never a big kid person.
Yep, I feel the same. I felt the same.
Right. I wasn't a big kids person before I had a Maya, but she really turned over a new leaf for me. I wasn't anti kids, but I just wasn't the one that would like walk into a party and like immediately go to the kids.
Right.
I would go to the dogs.
Yes.
Like the dogs here, okay, I made a friend.
Yes. Yeah.
But now it's like dogs and kids.
Yeah.
So I've definitely warmed up, and it's so weird how there's like a different clique for parents and non-parents. Like now I've made
Yeah.
like the parent group,
Yeah.
but it's been a lot of fun. And Maya's great. She's so much fun to have in Singapore. And you talked about like the good transitions. It's so family friendly, super safe,
Mm.
super clean. So definitely blessed in a lot of ways, and just enjoying our time that will be there.
2019 was a big year for one. A new era was a huge event, and then they topped that by the 2 night century events. You have been a part of the machine as it continues to progress in that time. How does it feel to be a part of something like this that is really building a lot of momentum, continuing to spread its wings and its power outside of Asia? And also, do you feel your voice is heard and suggestions and all these kinds of things? And are you getting a fulfillment out of being a part of this process of this growing organization?
Well, look, people always ask me what I think I would want to do when I retire, and my when I retired from fighting, right? People
Yeah.
would ask me before, and it's hard to see beyond that when you're in the middle of it. But what I will say is, I always knew I wanted to still be involved in mixed martial arts in some way. I was working with Fox at the time, and I was like,
Mm.
maybe I'll continue on that. And then One Championship became an option and a reality, and I thought, you know what? That's great. That's more like along my messaging and along what I've always been about, anyways. And moving there and really getting to be hands on with the company has been so eye opening in a great way. I'll be honest with you, I never thought that could be successful. That type of a company that's based off of ethics and loyalty,
Mm.
respect, honor, integrity. I did not think that a company that is based on ethics and morals would be successful in MMA. But when you hear that as a concept, that integrity, honor, courage, discipline, those are the things that the company's based on. You're like, yeah, but people think of this as a fighting sport. But I'll tell you what, when you see, north of 80 million viewers, you realize like there is something to that. I mean, there's a reason why those kinds of movies, like of the underdog and the people overcoming adversity, like why those are popular, because people can truly resonate with that. It's real life and these real life stories. And, I think One Championship it's just blown my mind. I love the fact that I get to be a part of something that I feel like is good for our futures, good for our society. I think, I could feel good about my kids watching a One Championship event and having those athletes as role models. Because for me, the sport has always been, it's about the sport. It's like I love it for those reasons. So I'm thrilled to be a part of it. Really, it's something amazing for me.
And I agree with you on all those points too. Now the real question is, because you just mentioned you've been a part of TV, you've had to and as a fighter and as a broadcaster, you've had to understand the American audience. I think without a doubt it works in that part of the world because of the culture differences and stuff like that. How do you feel? Because you're going to have to be a part of that transition to make this audience understand. Do you think? Do you feel it's going to be a tough sell for that Western sass and attitude to eventually buy into the ethics and everything? Because I mean, a lot of diehard like myself, we're on board. We get it. We just want to see good action. Is that what it's about? Just trying to sell? Hey, we got top level fighters. Just watch the fighters. You want to see good fights, because Is there like a nervousness about because I'm sure you'll be spearheading that.
Sure. Like, do I think it's going to be challenging? I do, because I think that I don't think it's so challenging in that people don't have value for like true martial arts. I don't think it's that as much as it is showing the difference, right? Because people are going to naturally in the West associate MMA with the UFC. So, getting the understanding of what is distinguishingly different about One Championship, that's just going to take time. It's going to take time and effort. But there's a heavy Asian influence, first of all, in the US. We know that, right?
True.
So there's going to be a lot of those that kind of just resonate naturally with the culture. But like I said, I think there's a lot of people who have been turned off, who have been lost, who don't want to see those kind of antics. They don't care about the drama. They don't want to see dollies getting thrown through bus windows. It's not how they want their kids to like get involved in the sport and see that as role models. There will be a percentage of people who love One Championship for exactly what we're about. And I think it's about capitalizing on those people and just continuing to expand globally and educate people on exactly what the difference is.
Now you are a legend in this MMA game. As simple as that. You were a youngster in the formative years of women's MMA and a key part of its boom period. To where it is now, where it's at an all-time high. When you see how often women main event now in the UFC, fighters like Alima McFarlane, Angela Lee, Kayla Harrison are top stars and faces for their respective brands. Do you kind of like look at it? Because since we were just talking about being a mom, as like a proud mama, because without Miesha Tate and many other women, I'm not sure we get to where we are right now with the continuing growth of women's MMA. Do you look at it like, man, I'm glad to see where it's at. It continues to get even better.
MMA was my first baby. It's my first baby, and I feel like in a way like I had a part to do with raising it, and I'm so proud of the ladies that have continued to carry the torch and are doing their work and due diligence, because it's maybe easier than it was when I did it, but it's not an easy sport. I don't care what anybody says, man or woman. It's a tough sport. And, I'm sure that there's still like those stigmas out there. I see it still in some parts of Asia too, where it's just harder for women to get that kind of recognition and acceptance. But, it's much more widely accepted, I think now. It's more trendy. It's more like, hey, it's cool that women fight. Women can do that. It's understood. When I first started, that was the big hurdle, that was the big battle, but there's still work to be done, and I'm proud that I can be a part of it as the way that I can be, and very proud of all the ladies who are continuing to, like I said, carry that torch.
And I'm glad you brought up there are the stigmas and the difficulties of being a female athlete and make, because, for a big part of the women's side of mixed martial arts, looks has been a large factor in things, unfairly so. And I'm sure you've had to deal with the pros and cons of that, being a very attractive woman, but also a gifted athlete and fighter too. As the women's side continues to grow, do you feel like, is that stigma about the looks and focusing on that kind of element for the women, do you feel like it's finally starting to change? We got a fighter like Amanda Nunes, who's a legit top 10 pound for pound female, male ever. Are women finally being looked at as top fighters and main eventers like men, or with such a heavy male lean to the audience, could that always be a tough thing female fighters have to always kind of combat in this sport?
So look, I'll be honest. I think that that it will always be something that'll have to be bad. I think it's too heavily ingrained. I think it's biology. I think and it's not just our sport. I mean, we criticize it inside of our sport, but it's the world. It's the way the world works. It's why there's pretty actresses. It's why there's pretty toothpaste models. It's why there's pretty Jennifer Aniston's, and why? It's because there's something just attractive. It's that something shiny effect. It's something beautiful. And I think when a woman who really looks feminine like a woman, it's kind of mind blowing to just see her be so tough, like a Paige Van Zandt. When she's got the warrior face painted in blood. It's like, whoa, But look, it's something also that I do feel like has had some adjustments, right? Some better acceptance. As you mentioned, Amanda Nunes, she's not a conventional idea of beauty, right? But she has been a great example. She's been a hell of a world champion, two division world champion, so she has set a precedence in a different way, which I do think helps. I don't think that everybody is going to consistently base it off of looks, but and I think too, as the audience of women grow, that there's even a little bit room for a decline in that stigma, and I hope that continues to go that way, because I like to see good fights. I don't care what people look like, but I'm probably in the minority, so that's all right. It's something we'll continue to battle, just as we do with everything else.
Well, speaking of good fights, one has some seriously really talented female fighters, of course, such as the aforementioned Angela Lee, Stamp Fairtex you talked about earlier. Zhang Jinang is a nasty, nasty girl. Michelle Nicolini is very, very talented, world-class, jiu-jitsu player. And maybe one of the biggest fights that could happen in one this year, if everything lines up right. There's still some things that have to happen first, but would be a Angela Lee versus two-sport champion Stamp Fairtex fight at M-weight. If that fight does go down in 2020, how do you feel? How do you see that fight playing out? Is Stamp ready for that level of grappling that Angela can bring? Is Angela gonna have a long night with Stamp's world-class striking? What do you think about that fight if it does happen this year?
Well, look, Stamp is still very green. I won't sugarcoat that. She's still very green on the ground. She's shown a lot of promise. Where I think it stands out is she's so naturally, incredibly athletically gifted. I mean, she's just explosive, and she never hesitates, and she generally makes the right decision. Even if it's like she's not the most educated person on the ground, when it comes to takedown defense, her balance is impeccable, and she just knows what to do, and sometimes not second guessing yourself and just going for it when you already have an athletic tendency. Man, she's good. She's really, really good. And do I think that she can hang with Angela on the ground right now? No, I don't. I mean, Angela is miles ahead of her in wrestling and grappling, but I'll tell you what, she's developing her skill set really fast, and she doesn't have to hang with Angela on the ground.
Right.
She just has to stay on the feet. And that's something where I think Stamp Fairtex, she's had a lot of clinch work. She has impeccable balance. I was talking about that. I think with a little more time, she will definitely be a #1 contender, a valid threat to Angela's title. And I mean, it's hard to say how that will happen in the future, because as you know, the sport of mixed martial arts continues to evolve so quickly that you just don't really know like how the trajectory of like who's growing at what pace, like what's that going to mean at the end of this year. I mean, they could be totally different fighters. So I think it's a fight that will happen. I'm banking on it. I think that Stan Fairtex, she has a fight coming up. She's actually going to be on
Yeah.
the co-headliner of our first event of 2020. And she's competing against Puja Tomar. And I think she has a promising matchup in that one too. I mean, Puja's tough, but I think she will continue to she's going to continue to climb the ladder, climb the ranks.
Looking back, we're talking about evolution and those things. You would have fought, if the world makes any sense, three eventual Hall of Famers. Ronda Rousey, Holly Holm, Amanda Nunes. Like I said, Amanda Nunes is a top 10 all-timer, men or women. And then if you really look at it, if were a legit MMA Hall of Fame, Marloes Coenen really needs to be in that caliber, and she should be the fourth possible Hall of Famer you fought in your career. As you move further away from your fighting career, you transition to this one championship, vice president, all these things. Have you gotten to a place where you look back and go, wow, like I really did something special, like, and that you by far surpassed what you thought you would be able to do, well, all the way back in your first fight for what I saw was hook and shoot 13 years ago.
That was the pro fight.
Yeah, pro fight. Yeah.
Amateur fight. I mean, that's when really it started. And there's no way in my wildest dreams after my first fight did I ever in a million years think that I would be where I'm at today. But it's crazy, and it just goes to show that if you follow your passion, you follow your heart, you're not afraid to take risks, and you go for it, that amazing things can and will happen. I truly believe that. And the hindsight now that I have, it's like, it's just crazy. I look back and I had no idea each step of the way that it was going to lead me to this point, that I was going to capture the UFC world title, that I would be loved by so many people and have such a great support fan base, and wow, I mean, the journey has just been so incredible, so humbling. I'm so grateful for the experience, like even having the rivalry with Ronda, having all that, like I'm genuinely thankful. I'm genuinely grateful to have been a part of that. And I could not be more blessed to be able to continue working with the athletes and doing what, truly what I love.
And do you ever get used to being a person that's viewed as an influencer? I'm sure a lot of the young athletes, male or female for one, when they see you, they're like, oh my God, Miesha Tate, like, you're only 33. You are crazy young. Like, but you're like looked at this legendary veteran. Does it take time to get used to as being this person that's like, you are influencing dreams. You are influencing future career decisions. Like, people are looking at you going, I want to be the next Miesha Tate. Like, do you get used to that?
No, I really don't. Honestly, no. The answer to that is no. I feel awkward every single time. I'm thankful, but I feel so awkward because I don't know how to accept that. I'm like, I don't know, like, what do I say? Like, when somebody's like so happy and honored, it's like, I mean, I really didn't start doing this with that intention. I just was doing it for myself, and like selfishly, I wanted to. It's like I was passionate, and then I realized through time that I had an opportunity to inspire people, to maybe change their lives in a certain way, and that I had already done that without even realizing it. And then once you start to realize that, you really start to reflect on yourself and say, if I have the ability to have this kind of impact on people, I want it to be the best impact that I can have, or at least I think that you should do that. That's what I did. And then you realize you have a responsibility as a role model, as somebody who has potential influence. And I mean, you really have to like start to evaluate yourself and try to become even stronger and like a better version of yourself, so that you can try to get back. Because I think that's what it really kind of the full circle, right? The full circle of life. I feel like I've been so blessed. I've had so many people in my life that have made a great difference, that if I have the opportunity to make a difference in however many people's lives, I really want it to be the best and impact them in the most magical way. And yes, it's still awkward for me every time, but I'm also always grateful.
Now, one of the interesting stories in the summer, and I have to ask you about, I'm curious about it. You had a verbal clash with Colby Covington on your Sirius radio show. He and Usman had a great fight a few weeks back that came down to the wire. Usman won late. After that whole thing with you and Colby, was there a part of you, maybe like the dark the dark evil part of Miesha, the mean part that doesn't get out? Did he want to go like full Dana White and like put like a smiley emoji on social media right after the loss, you know? Or you kind of like, you know what? I'm a mom now. I'm better than that. I'm past that. I'm not even thinking about that nonsense.
Yeah, honestly, like I'm so over it. I'm not into investing into that kind of energy. Like I just don't want it. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be part of negativity. I don't want to spread ugliness into the world. Like I want to spread the good things. Like so I'm all about like being on the positive train and trying to make a better impact in this world,
Yeah.
and I don't want to give, energy to that kind of negative light. So I think what will be will be. I do believe in karma. I believe in all that stuff, and it's fine. Like I don't have any hate in my heart. I don't hold any resentment. I'm over it, and yeah, I want to be a better example, for my daughter. So
Always end
that's the goal.
the interviews with the subjects asking, because I want to learn a little bit more about them. But I mean, I'm sure many people know so much about you now, on social media, you're world famous. But I always like to ask, what are fighters into away from
Candy Crush,
fighting?
that's one of my favorite things to do when I do have a little downtime. I also read, I also journal. Audiobooks, I've really been into
Oh.
audiobooks recently, so that's something that I can do on the go whenever I'm traveling or walking. We do a lot of walking in Singapore. I don't have a car there. That's kind of audiobooks is another great one.
What's your favorite? What's the recent audiobook you've listened to that really impressed you, blew you away, that you would recommend to the many fans you have out there?
Oh, I'll tell you, it's by Devon Franklin, The Truth About Men.
Oh,
So
what truths
interesting.
did you
Yep.
learn?
Oh my God, all up in that psyche, all up in the male psyche. So I feel like I just learned so much about guys, just the way that they are, the way they think, and things that probably most guys don't even know about themselves. But I mean,
Ah.
it was incredibly interesting. It was a book that just came kind of like rated on my. I was looking for a new audiobook, and it was like high rated, and I was like, oh, why not? I have credits, so I did, and I was like, this is a really good book. Another good book. It's called Education. I forget who the author was, but that's a great story. If you have Educated, excuse me, Educated, great story as well. I won't get into that one as much, but two really good books. Those are the ones I recommend.
Did the one about the secret of men? Is it the kind of thing that there's those days you want to just give the husband a right hook? You're like, oh no, the book. And you know what? I
Yeah,
understand what he's going through. All right, I'll stop.
they're like, okay, I kind of get it now. I and like why, but yeah, it's The Truth About Men. Very, very insightful, very interesting book.